Raider Nation, what is up? Happy holidays. We are in the midst of the holiday season. I don't know if you could tell that I'm in the spirit. All I want for Christmas is a first draft pick. It's me. It's Raiderdamus. We are here with you. It's Raiders Uncovered. We got a lot of show today. I want to talk about my thumbnail. It was very irreverent, very tongue-in-cheek. I just wanted to highlight Brock Bowers because so far he's the best rookie that we've ever had at any position. And, Tom Brady as like the best quarterback associated with the Raiders organization. It's a little cheeky. I get cheeky sometimes. Bo Jackson, I think everybody would agree on the talent level. He's the best running back the Raiders have ever had. Jerry Rice, his best years may not have been with the Raiders, but I can comfortably say that he's the best wide receiver that has ever been on a Raiders roster. And then we got Brock. So I just wanted to I was just playing around. We got other things to talk about, but I wanted to throw that out there.
Well, the Raiders have had an awful lot of really good tight ends in their history, but I have a suspicion that when all is said and done, Brock Bowers will be the best of them.
Yes, he's amazing. We got Jamie in the chat already, ready to get it going. Jamie, you missed the show this morning. I even put a brown on the thumbnail for Dynasty Stock Market this morning. So, whatever. Just it must feel good to know when you're a viewer that contributes in the comments. It must feel good to know when you're missed. Anyway, let's we got a bunch of stuff today. We've got our State of the Nation, in which we will get into the Black Friday game. The question I put in the YouTube video is, did the Raiders win affect us on Black Friday? And to that end, I want to talk about the fact that the Raiders actually did win that game. Win in quotes. There are derivative definitions of the word win. Anybody who wants to argue that, yes, the Chiefs got the W in their column and they finished with more points on the scoreboard than the Raiders did. You're right. But in that game, we won. And we'll get into why. That'll be State of the Nation. We got Players of the Week that we're going to talk about, Slayers of the Week from the game. We'll get into that in a little bit. And then also we've got I say very special. It's always special. Raiderdamus' Hall of Shade. So let's get things started with our State of the Nation and talk about this game. Just give me a second to email the producer and tell him to hit the button. Okay, let's go back for a second, get Shrek'd. We said in this chat immediately after the draft that Bowers was already the best tight end in the football. It was not hyperbole. It was not. We also said that AOC should have always been the starter.
I would argue that Brock Bowers has, in fact, been the best tight end on earth since his freshman year at Georgia when he was like 18 or 19 years old. I don't think that's too much of a stretch to say. As good as like Travis Kelce and guys like Evan Ingram and Kyle Pitts are, Brock Bowers is the complete package of tight end and has been for a very, very, very long time. I said in September of 2023, he was going to be the best player in the 2024 draft, and guess what? I was right. No matter how Jaden Daniels or how good Bo Nix look, Brock Bowers is the best rookie in the NFL this year, and he will be one of the best players in the league going forward.
Absolutely.
That's not hyperbole.
Right. Let me find some tweets. October 22. Start stocking 2024 first round picks now for Brock Bowers. December 23. I'm talking about Brock Bowers being a top 4 wide receiver. Yeah. I mean, we all have our receipts. October 2022, scouting Anthony Richardson and Brock Bowers. So it was very apparent from the get-go that he was absolutely going to be a beast. And he showed it against the Chiefs on Friday. You know why they call it Black Friday? Because nobody would shop on Silver Friday. But it certainly wasn't Red Friday. All right. Kansas City Chiefs come out with more points scored, 19 to the Raiders 17. Their record stands at 11-1. They remain undefeated at home. The Raiders fall to 2-10. They keep pace. I think it's the number 2 pick in the draft. New York Giants held their place. Nothing really changed in the bottom 4. For the game, Patrick Mahomes, 26 of 46. He was throwing the ball a lot. 1 touchdown, 306 yards. Isaiah Pacheco, 7 carries, 44 yards. Kareem Hunt, 7 carries, 15 yards. Patrick Mahomes had a couple of scampers. Other than that, the defense held them in check in the run game. They had 63 total yards. Don't check my work, but that's probably the fewest amount of yards on the ground that the Raiders have given up all year. And that was to a prolific rushing team in the Chiefs on their home field. In the receiving game, DeAndre Hopkins led Chiefs with 4 catches for 90 yards. Travis Kelce, 7 catches for 68 yards. It's the first time in a long time that he hasn't absolutely destroyed us. Noah Gray, you could have given his 4 catches and 58 yards to Kelce, and nobody would have blinked. Xavier Worthy, 5 catches on 7 targets for 54 yards. Samaje Perine, Juju Smith-Schuster, Justin Watson, Isaiah Pacheco each had a catch. For the Raiders, Aiden O'Connell. Okay, Aiden O'Connell coming back, getting a start after his injury amidst the Desmond Ridder controversy, Gardner Minshew breaking his collarbone and being forced to sit out. They finally went back to the AOC well, and he absolutely outshone Patrick Mahomes. 23 of 35 passing for 340 yards. He was averaging 9.7 yards per completion. He threw for 2 touchdowns. He was only sacked 3 times to Mahomes' 5 sacks. And he finished with a passer rating of 116.4 to Mahomes' 84.1. Now, there's a guy on Twitter that I get into discussions with because we are on the same page, and that is that Patrick Mahomes never in his career has elevated any receivers that he's had. We watched Derek Carr bring in receiver after receiver that would have their career year and be nothing before and nothing after. But while they were on the same team as Derek Carr, he elevated them to their career best status. That was the kind of game that Aiden O'Connell played on Friday. In fact, I want to say, and again, don't check my math, but somebody tweeted today, whether it was Tayshaun or Hondo, that the majority of Aiden O'Connell's passes this season over a certain amount of yards, 5 of the 7 of them came in this game, including one beautiful one to Trey Tucker for 58 yards and a touchdown. On the rushing side, we had Amir Abdullah, 10 rushes for 39 yards. Trey Tucker, Brock Bowers, Aiden O'Connell each had a scamper. Sincere McCormick became the leader in that running back room, 12 carries, 64 yards, 5.3 yards average. In the receiving game, Brock, 10 catches on 14 targets, 140 yards. You can say he had 14 yards per catch, but I want to say he had 10 yards per target. And when you're looking at 14 targets, that's pretty amazing. He also added a touchdown. Jacoby Myers, ample, 6 of 97. And Trey Tucker, that one big catch for 58 yards. DJ Turner, 1 for 25. Amir Abdullah, 2 for 14. Michael Mayer had a catch on 2 targets. Sincere McCormick had 2 catches on 2 targets, but didn't go anywhere with them. And I don't know if you knew this, but I certainly didn't. And I didn't even notice it during the game. But Terrace Marshall's a Raider. I literally report the Raiders news and scour all week. And it missed me that Terrace Marshall Jr. was a Raider.
No, I actually did know that. It was I think a couple of months ago that Terrace Marshall was added to the Raiders practice squad. And I caught that he was elevated to the active roster for the Chiefs game. And I was like, oh, that's interesting because Terrace Marshall was a good player in college.
Yeah, at LSU.
I believe it was LSU. He was fine. But then he went to, I want to say, the Panthers.
Yep.
And didn't do anything because the Panthers are terrorists.
They're a black hole.
Nobody. Yeah. But I was hoping he would break out as a Raider, and he was pretty okay. He could be something going forward.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of guys like that, and he's in there for emergency purposes, and that's totally fine. Let's talk about the defense real quick. We had Robert Spillane leading the Raiders in tackles. Nick Bolton led all in tackles with 11. Spillane had 9. We had shared sacks from Adam Butler, Clavon Chason, another LSU product, Zach Carter, and Max Crosby. Max also contributed 2 tackles for loss in the run game. And then Clavon Chason added another solo sack. So he had a pretty good kind of coming out party for the Raiders defense. It's something that we have desperately needed. But I'm looking at these 2 stats specifically, 3 stats specifically, 2 stats specifically. The first is the Raiders had 5 sacks, four sacks. The Chiefs had 3. The Raiders had, and this one's even more important to me, the Raiders had 55 total tackles. The Kansas City defense had 70 total tackles. What does that tell you?
It tells me that the Raiders ran an awful lot more plays than the Chiefs did, which generally means that the running game is effective. And right. I don't think the Chiefs' run game was effective. And when the Chiefs' offense was effective, it was because they were getting chunk plays, which obviously limits the number of plays you have per drive when that is the case. But the Raiders were getting a little here, a little there, and just methodically grinding out drives, which is good if you have the kind of defense that the Raiders hoped they have coming into this season. You can take up, 30 to 35 to 38 minutes per game of possession, keep the ball out of the other offense's hands. You don't want Patrick Mahomes to get his hands on the ball too often, or else he'll destroy you. So this is the kind of game you want to play. And to be honest, it should have worked, and it would have worked if Daniel Carlson wasn't drunk.
Yes. There were 4 plays in which the Raiders had the opportunity to finish this game with more points than the Chiefs. 3 of those, 2 were kind of wonky misses by Carlson. The third one was Carlson's toe hit the ground before he got to the ball, which was really weird. And then finally, the last play, the fumble that was attributed to Aiden O'Connell, which is not fair. And a lot of people gave Jackson Powers Johnson heat, but it wasn't his fault either. It was the fault of the guard who was next to JPJ, whose job it was to reach over and tap him to let him know that it's time to snap the ball. And he was a practice squad guy, if I'm not mistaken, who wasn't acclimated into the offense well and went too early. So Jackson Powers Johnson went too early. So Aiden O'Connell wasn't prepared. They did their best to fall on it, and somehow the Chiefs got it, and that was the ball game. But up until that play, the Raiders absolutely dog walked the Kansas City Chiefs. Here's another stat I want to throw out to you. The Kansas City Chiefs defense had 4 quarterback hits. The Raiders had 12 quarterback hits. Now, if I had told you before the game that one team was going to have 4 quarterback hits and the other was going to have 12, you would not have expected that it was going to be the Raiders with the 12 quarterback hits.
Yeah. As odd as this sounds, because the Raiders aren't a good football team, the Raiders are a matchup problem for the Chiefs. Because the one thing the Chiefs absolutely cannot have is Patrick Mahomes being under pressure. Not that he's not good under pressure, but it's because that is a timing offense, as all West Coast offenses are. And Andy Reid is a Bill Walsh disciple. So when you get in his face and you make him run around and do a bunch of dancing in the backfield, it screws everything up. And it also will disrupt the running game, which is what the Chiefs need to have some actual balance. And they didn't have it in this game. And they should have lost that game. I'm not upset that the Raiders have a better draft pick because of it, but the Chiefs are on fraud alert, because they should have lost to the Broncos and they should have lost to the Raiders in the last couple of weeks. The Chiefs are nowhere near as good as the Bills. They're nowhere near as good as the Lions right now. The record says otherwise, but the record is horse shit because they've been getting lucky and they've been getting home cooking from the refs. And now I'm not going to blame the refs for everything, but when a ref gets injured, it goes on the Chiefs injury report. That's all I'm going to say.
and I mean, it's the most empty 11-1 record I've seen in the NFL in a long time. Digging into some of the macro team stats, Raiders led time of possession 31 minutes to 28, that's kind of like one of the things that if they had been able to develop that kind of output at the beginning of the season, things would be looking a lot differently right now. They did have more penalties than the Chiefs. Surprise, they had 9 penalties for 101 yards. The Chiefs had 7 penalties for 40 yards. First downs, Raiders win 20-18. They had 13 passing first downs, 13 passing first downs to the Chiefs 14. Rushing first downs, the Raiders had 7 to the Chiefs 2. The refs gave the Chiefs 2 first downs from penalties and none to the Raiders. Raiders were less efficient on third down because that is the Chiefs referee down. Total plays, 63 plays from the Raiders, 67 for the Chiefs. Total yards, 434 for the Raiders, 329 for the Chiefs. So they outgained them by over 100 total yards. 11 Raiders drives to 12 Chiefs drives. 6.9 nice yards per play for the Raiders, 4.9 for the Chiefs. And again, 318 passing yards for the Raiders, 116 on the ground. That's, I want to say, the second most, tied for the most, or it's the second most that the Chiefs have allowed all season. And that's coming from the Raiders. So it looks like and the Chiefs have been stout against the run. So that could, portend things for the future. The Raiders offensive line has figured it out a little bit. We shall see. Hopefully that doesn't get into dig into the draft pick. So this is what I tweeted. People need to quit acting like the Raiders didn't win in Kansas City yesterday. A, they dog walked the Chiefs. They absolutely dominated that game. B, Aiden O'Connell showed himself. He's a true dude. He's a dude. We've been saying it. We were trying to tell the brass. They didn't want to listen. They lost jobs because of it, and the Raiders have a second pick right now in the draft. So they idle in the draft pick race. They covered the spread. How often do they do that? They don't do that very often. They did that this time. Carlson's missed field goals and the late fumble merely gave the Chiefs more points and the W in the columns. That's it. The Raiders won that game, period.
I want to add here that the Chiefs should have lost the Bengals game, and they should have lost the Chargers game. The Chiefs, in all honesty, should be like a 7-5 team right now. The Chiefs are not that good. They just win because of fourth quarter ref ball and because Patrick Mahomes is a preternatural player. The Chiefs themselves aren't great. And I want to go back to your point that has Patrick Mahomes ever made anybody better? Let's see. Well, Xavier Worthy was this good at Texas. Tyreek Hill is still this good in Miami. Rashee Rice was this good at SMU. Travis Kelce was pretty damn good at Cincinnati. The only person who Patrick Mahomes has actually elevated is Andy Reid, because Andy Reid couldn't get it done with Donovan McNabb, but he's got it done 3 times with Mahomes because Mahomes is really, 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 really good. But again, he doesn't make his receivers better because they're already freaking great. It's just that Mahomes is so good, he'll find them if they get open, and not every quarterback can do that. Whereas if you look at Derek Carr, he had success with Andre Holmes. Do you know who the hell Andre Holmes is? Because a lot of people watching this are too young and too big of a nephew to know who the hell Andre Holmes is. But I do, because I watched him, and Derek Carr took a bunch of scrubs and almost damn near made the playoffs with them. That's different. It's not the same thing. They're not the same.
He took Michael Crabtree, made him a wide receiver 1. He took Mac Hollins, made him a wide receiver 2. I mean, he has put it together for people. Zay Jones is an afterthought everywhere he goes, except when he was with the Raiders. I want to go back real quick because this is funny. Get Shrek said Browers has a chance to be the best football player ever born. Well, second best.
I mean, I don't know about if he's going to be better than the greatest football player of all time, Al Del Greco.
Me,
but he has a chance to be the best tight end ever born.
He's top tier regardless. And then this is the kind of the point that Raiderdamus was making. The Chiefs play to the level of their competition seemingly always, and that's probably a good reason why they win so many close games. I want to say the stat is 13 games with under 13 victories in games that were decided by less than a touchdown in a row, which is a record or something that they kept slobbing the Chiefs knob about. And that only happens when you get the refs' calls. And if you play to the level of the competition of your enemy, you're going to find yourself in more position to get that.
That also only happens if you have a really, really, really good kicker like Harrison Butker has been. As shitty as a human being as Harrison Butker might be, he's been damn consistent over his career. But they don't have him right now. And that might bite them in the playoffs if they're in a close game again. They don't have that reliable kicker like they've had before.
We got a special guest in the chat, Liam Booth. What's up, fellas? Hey, it's your boy going to the Super Bowl. You didn't even respond to the text. Yeah. And Raiders are making the playoffs next year. Lock it in. Sure.
Hey, your lips to God's ears, my man.
Behind the golden arm of Aiden O'Connell. All right. And Raiders beating the Chiefs last year lit a fire up their ass that led to a Super Bowl win. The Raiders' loss this year could jumpstart our 2025 season through the draft and also sink the Chiefs because every week they go in thinking, we're going to win. And they're not very good. Jamie trying to one-up Liam. Raiders are winning the Super Bowl next year. Okay. All right. It's not going to be and the legs of Ashton John T.
Now, there's 5 guys in the first round that I really want the Raiders to have, but they can only have one of them.
Yeah.
It's really kind of pissing me off.
I think my priority at this point is Travis Hunter. But I would take an Ashton John T. I'll
nobody ever went to the Super Bowl because of their cornerback.
He'd be playing both.
Well, I'm aware of that, but I think he'd prioritize corner just because of his size. But I don't recall any team that was propelled to the playoffs or the Super Bowl by their secondary. So that's why Travis Hunter is not necessarily the priority for me. A quarterback obviously would be the priority for me, but not to say that the Raiders don't need secondary help because they absolutely do.
Pretty sure that we wouldn't have made the Super Bowl without Charles Woodson.
Well, that's different though. I mean, that's without Charles Woodson playing on a team with Rich Gannon, and Rich Gannon and that offense.
Was he an MVP?
Well, yeah, of course he was the MVP. You remember that? Charles Woodson never won MVP. He won the Heisman. That's different.
Yeah, and
Travis Hunter's going to win the Heisman in a couple of weeks, and what does that mean for Colorado? Fucking nothing, unless they can win the Big 12.
Yeah, I don't know about that. All right. Also, in State of the Nation, Hondo Carpenter had a series of tweets today that made me laugh and made me respond. And the first one was, should the Raiders wait for Texas's Arch Manning? Yeah, they should. If there's any way that they can justify to the fans that they'll have a top 5 pick in 2024 and a number 1 pick in 2025, do it. His next tweet, has Raiders Jacoby Myers been better than Devontae Adams? Yeah, he has been. Look at the stats. Look at the fantasy football standings. Jacoby Myers has been better this year than Devontae Adams. What do you expect from a 32-year-old? And then finally, it is time to give Aiden O'Connell, it is time to give Aiden O'Connell the tools to be successful. And then I said, calm down.
Since joining the Jets, Devontae Adams has been football Jesus, and by that I mean he's got holes in his hands. He can't catch
okay. That was good.
He can't catch anything. He's been awful. The Jets have been absolute garbage since they traded a 3rd-round pick for Devontae Adams. That pick will probably end up being around pick 69. Nice. And the Raiders can get a nice complimentary piece with that pick. And the Jets will have absolute dog shit, and I'm happy to see it.
Get Shrek. Give Bowers a solid quarterback, and we don't need a defense. Defense wins championships, so we do need a good defense. Now, here's the thing. Next year, coming back, swinging back around for 2025, we got Christian Wilkins coming back. He'll be healthy and hungry. We got Max Crosby, who's going to have his partner on like in the middle. He's healthy and hungry. Tyree Wilson with another year under his belt, that's fine. We found some kind of gems in the pass rush. We just went out and started putting it together against the run. And then we've got DeCameron Richardson with another year. Look at the jump that Jacorian Bennett made. Jacorian Bennett coming back next year. Nate Hobbs, of course. Sign all the guys. We got Polamau ascending. We got Trevon Merrick in the back. Like, sign him again. Marcus Epps.
What do you do with Malcolm Kuntz? I don't mean to interrupt you, but like he hasn't played a down this year.
So he's not going to get the contract that he was going to get if he had been successful. So that makes him more affordable. My
thing is, if you're comfortable with AOC, if the Raiders are comfortable with AOC, which I wouldn't be, but if they are, do you trade down like a lot and take somebody like my personal favorite player in the draft, Penn State defensive end Abdul Carter, and replace Malcolm Kuntz entirely?
Okay.
Is that a strategy? Because that's one more pick you can use next year on Arch Manning.
Yes, I am all for that. There's also the possibility of trading for the Arch Manning pick, whatever. My point is, there are two different kinds of people. There are analytics people and there are eye test people. Maybe there's a third, people that like to use both, like me. But we had the eye test last year in the second half of the season with Aiden O'Connell. We also had the analytics part of it with Aiden O'Connell. This year, we had the eye test with Aiden O'Connell. And we tried to say, we know better. And he didn't do anything. Then he comes out in the Chiefs game and he does exactly what he did last year against the Chiefs. He just needed first team reps. He needed the confidence. He needed that vote of confidence. He needed all those things. He finally got it and he finally showed out. If he had had that going into training camp and then coming into the season, he would have been just fine. He would have hit the ground running in week 1. And maybe that absolutely would have completely changed our team's fortunes.
And he's doing this currently with a skeleton crew offensive line, a skeleton crew running game, and a skeleton crew wide receiver group.
Yeah.
If he had looked this good against the Vikings in preseason, maybe he wins the job. But what he's doing right now with basically absolutely nothing around him is pretty damn impressive. Now, I'm all for drafting a quarterback, but that doesn't mean AOC is bad. He's been quite good.
We watched him during the preseason games, during the quarterback battle, and said he looks better than Gardner Minshew. We knew that.
I thought so.
We talked about it. It's baffling to me. We do need a competent OC, and I saw some pretty good play calling.
Scott Turner's been fine as far as I can tell. I mean,
yeah,
maybe some of the play calling is suspect, but I mean, it's an interesting situation where he's not playing with a full deck of cards right now, and nobody is on this team.
Yeah, and there are a couple more points here. The biggest stunt to AOC's growth was being a backup. We could have kept Devontae, and Brock would be even better, in Liam's opinion. And also, if he had come into the beginning of the season and been able to move the ball down the field and sustain drives, the defense wouldn't have been so cashed. They wouldn't have required Christian Wilkins and Malcolm Kuntz to be like on point all the time. And maybe they could have avoided injury if they had been able to come off the field a little bit. All of those things are dominoes that we talked about in an episode a few weeks ago about how each little piece led to the next thing that led to the next thing, the butterfly effect of a losing football team. And that's what we saw. And the impetus for all of that was the Getsy hiring.
Yeah, I mean, if the Raiders had been able to stick with Cliff Kingsbury, I think it'd be a bit of a different story. He's had a lot of success in Washington. But then I don't know how you give your head coach a 2-year contract and your offensive coordinator a 3-year contract, which apparently is what the Raiders would have been doing in that situation, which I think is silly. I think Pierce should get 3 years regardless, because Pierce was not given the greatest team in the world. I think Tom Telesco is drafting well enough where by the end of Pierce's tenure, he'll have a much, 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 much better team than he started with. And it's up to Pierce to do what he needs to do as far as coaching that team up. But injuries have absolutely decimated this team this year. It's nobody's fault that's just bad luck. If you're playing a game, you would chalk this up to RNG because shit happens, and it's nobody's fault at all. I'm not saying people in the Raiders organization had to make bad decisions, because Luke Getsy was a bad decision. But at that point in the season, when Kingsbury leaves you high and dry, and you take what you can get, you make the best of it, and it didn't go well. Mistakes were made. That's what happens in Halo when you jump off the bridge and kill yourself. Mistakes were made. That's what it says. And that's what the Raiders have done this year. Mistakes were made.
Now, to the Kingsbury point, Get Shrek Bra says that he blames Kingsbury backing out. I go further back than that. I go back to not giving the job to Bo Hardigree in the first place. Not saying Hardigree is the offensive coordinator who put together the offense in the second half of the year last year when we missed the playoffs by a game after the debacle that was Josh McDaniels. Bo Hardigree. And who was the interim head coach? Antonio Pierce. And who was the defensive coordinator that led the top 5 defense in the second half of the season? I mean, bring him back. Run it back. Why mess with a good thing? It was already there. And they decided to let Bo Hardigree leave. It just, like, it all is so frustrating. My partner on the Dynasty Stock Market, DFK, Dope Hat, thank you, sir. Maybe you could get a Cowboys
He's
one.
talking to me. He's talking to me.
I think your hat is dope too. Maybe Alex can get. He's also the host of the Cowboys Uncovered show, so go and watch that when you're done with this. He already did his episode, but you can still watch the recording. He should get a dope Cowboys hat too. And then the other thing I wanted to say, 3 years minimum needs the Dan Campbell treatment. Tyler, do you remember the days where everybody talked about the 5-year plan?
I do. When
you hired a head coach, you gave that head coach 5 years to put together a winning football team. Granted,
what they didn't have in the days of the 5-year plan? The NFL Network and Twitter.
A multi-billion-dollar TV contract?
That too. The problem with a 5-year plan is that if you aren't successful after like week 3 of the 5-year plan, people are going to be all up in your shit. And they're going to be all up in your shit 24 hours a day, because that's what our news cycle is now. People have Twitter where they can go on at 24/7 and say whatever the hell they want, and they have a platform and a megaphone to do so. That's a problem in a lot of areas of our society, but it certainly is a problem with the 5-year plan, is that in the area of instant gratification, people have no patience.
Right.
And they also have very low tolerance for mediocrity. And if you show that you are mediocre, people are going to lose patience with you really quickly. Now, a good example of how this doesn't apply is with Bo Nix. Because in the first few weeks of Bo Nix's Denver Broncos career, he didn't look very good. People were starting to get a little antsy about Bo Nix. Last night, Bo Nix looked like God. He had a pass to Marvin Mims that was within centimeters of being tipped, but it was thrown so hard and so perfectly that it was like a 93-yard touchdown, and it was amazing. And now all the Broncos fans are like, oh, we have our quarterback of the future. Really? Because after week 5, you didn't think that, but you think that now. Imagine what happens when you give a quarterback a little bit of patience and a little bit of time to develop. Because I knew Bo Nix was this guy back at Oregon, and I knew that Bo Nix was a lot better than what he showed at Auburn, under Randy Harsin being thrown to the Wolves. And if the Broncos are going to throw him to the Wolves too, well, then that's what you're going to get. But a little bit of patience, a little bit of a development, and this is what happens. So I'm not saying that you need to suffer through mediocrity forever. What I am saying is that give people a chance.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not here to shit on your Cheerios, but Jameis Winston did have more touchdowns for the Broncos last night than Bo Nix.
Yeah, but we know who he is. He's going to throw the ball until he's dead. That's the Browns' MO. That's what they still lost. So who cares?
To be fair, we held the Chiefs to 19 points. Just saying defense isn't the issue. It is an issue. And yeah, I mean, defense is an issue. All right. I lost. I lost my train of thought. The last time that I really heard the 5-year plan, give a coach 5 years. It was something that I heard from John Madden on his broadcast for a long time. And the last time that I really heard it talked about was with John Gruden. Now, recent example of this like win now culture or whatever, which is absolutely ruining professional sports unless you're the fucking Dodgers or the goddamn Chiefs or like some team that creates a dynasty and nobody else can compete for whatever reason, whether it's with salaries or, coaching. No, there is no like competition that comes up, and diversity in competition is important in sports. You can't have 40 trash teams for like decades at a time and 2 teams that always win. It sucks. It sucks for sports.
But you'd be European soccer.
And Manchester City is a great example of that too. Here's the other thing. The other night I'm at work, working at a liquor store. Guy comes in, he's wearing Sacramento Kings gear. Sacramento Kings 1.15 seasons ago were in the playoffs. They missed the playoffs last year. They're under 500 2 months into the season right now. And this guy said, should third-year head coach Mike Brown be fired? He took him to the playoffs 2 years ago. We have such short memories. There's such immediate gratification. It's such a win now culture. And it sucks. It sucks when you're on the losing end of it. One of my favorite things about the game on Friday was they showed a lot of young Chiefs fans. And just like Cal Bears, whose graduating class has never seen Stanford win the Axe, it's always been the Bears in their time there. There were a couple other examples in college football this year where seniors graduating never lost to their rival.
I know another school, blue and yellow, that has that too. The Ohio State Buckeyes graduating class has never seen anyone but Michigan win that game. And that makes me so happy right now.
Yeah, we're both giddy. It's so good. But I was looking into the faces of those very young Chiefs fans, and it dawned on me that they've never known Chiefs pain. They've never known Chiefs struggle, and it's coming. And
there were 20 years of Patriots fans that didn't know shit.
I was so satisfied in the knowledge that those happy faces were at some point just going to be full of dread and pain and God damn it, why us? I'm a San Francisco Giants fan. It's now been 10 years since our last World Series win. And I'm watching the Dodgers and their checkbook ascend. And that's the pain I feel. And I can't wait until those little shit adolescent Chiefs fans feel the same goddamn thing that I feel about the San Francisco Giants, that I felt about the Raiders for 40 years. I want them to feel pain.
I think people need to understand our pain here because we're Raiders and Giants fans, both of us. And the 2 best, most successful athletes on earth, Shohei Ohtani and Patrick Mahomes, play for the 2 teams we hate the most. And that sucks. It makes me not want to watch sports anymore, but I do it because I'm a real man and I love sports, and I'm going to watch this through thick and thin until something good happens. And if I die first, then I die first. But someday the Raiders are going to win again, and they're going to shove the faces. They're going to shove the faces of all those teams who pray after touchdowns into a big pile of shit on the 50-yard line, and it's going to be glorious.
And hopefully we ascend. I'm hoping that the mid-level mediocrity of the Chargers and the Broncos stays good enough for us to leapfrog them while the Chiefs fall too. Let's get to the Slayers of the Week. Now, we did have a comment from Liam. Alond, Manchester City, Mahomes, Ohtani, and Jokic. Those are the best players on the planet that are the rivals of our teams. Anyway, go ahead and give me an offensive player, Slayer of the Week for you.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with one Sincere McCormick. I am a big fan of a particular Raiders content creator named Graphic Raider. I'm sure many of our friends here and our viewers will be familiar with Graph. And he's been on the Sincere McCormick train since day one, since Sincere was at University of Texas, San Antonio. He has been pounding the drum, beating the table for Sincere McCormick to get more playing time, to get on the active roster, to show what he can do, because he loves Sincere McCormick. And I've just been, okay, well, I don't know much about Sincere McCormick, but I hope he gets some run. I hope he does well. Well, guess what? He got the start, and he was fantastic. It turns out Graf was right this entire time about how damn good Sincere McCormick can be. Sincere McCormick is absolutely an NFL-level player. He's a starting caliber player. If he can run against the Chiefs defense, which is really stout against the run, he can damn well run against anybody, especially with a patchwork offensive line like he had in that last game. Sincere McCormick is a stud, should be a star, and I absolutely hope he gets a very large share of the Raiders' rushing yards next year.
A lot of that also has to do with the fact that the Raiders' run game went from quit trying to hit the corner, run behind JPJ. Just let him bulldoze. Liam, I've been in this Raiders shit full time for about 6 years. I've never known success.
I've been in this since 1990, buddy. I've seen it all.
1984, you guys. And that's the end of our success.
That's the year I was born.
I became a Raiders fan in the early 80s. I watched the Super Bowl. I have Super Bowl glory under my belt. It's been 40 years since then. Also, I do want to, as long as we're giving out flowers for the Sincere McCormick calls, I did receive a text in August of 2024 from Liam Booth saying that he wanted Sincere McCormick to be our RB3, which would have put him right into position to take over as once Madison and Zamir White. So Liam, great call on that. All right, my offensive slayer of the week, I got to give it to Aiden O'Connell. That dude went out and actually put it on the fucking Chiefs. In a holiday game, nobody was watching college football. Everybody was at home. They're watching the Raiders and the Chiefs. And Patrick and Aiden O'Connell put on a fucking show. He is my offensive slayer of the week. Jacoby Myers for Liam and JPJ honorary. Something must be wrong with Liam's camera because he gets invited to come on this show every week, and so someday he'll never he'll be on here again. Been on the show before. He will make it again. All right, give me a defensive slayer of the week.
I'm gonna have to go with Max Crosby. On a team that doesn't have a lot of success, Max comes out and gives it 100% every single week. When you could excuse anybody for not playing to their full potential and making business decisions, Max Crosby has never made a business decision except to sack the quarterback so much he gets paid more. That's his business decision. And he came out and he terrorized Patrick Mahomes again, as he always does. Max Crosby is the heart and soul of this team. I know he got a raise before the season started, and he damn well deserves another one. Max Crosby is one of the greatest Raiders of all time, I think we could say at this point. And he deserves every cent of money that he gets. He deserves every bit of accolade that he gets. He has been a stalwart on a team that has essentially fallen apart around him. And he has just stayed steady, stayed at his normal level of production, even playing hurt sometimes. He's just been the man. And I absolutely adore him, and I wish the best for him. So he's my slayer of the week on defense this week.
I feel like as soon as one of their careers ends, whoever it happens to first, Max Crosby will be the all-time Mahomes sack leader. I'm gonna stay with the defensive line for the slayer of the week, but I do want to give a shout out to Isaiah Polamau, 5 tackles, and DeCameron Richardson, 5 tackles. All of DeCameron Richardson's tackles were solo. There's one thing that we know about DeCameron Richardson, and that he's fast. And if we are missing that dog in Amik Robertson, who's like making tackles in the run game, DeCameron Richardson is going to be a dog, and I can't wait to watch his career. He was a draft pick steal. Nobody really had a good read on him just because of his lack of interceptions. But the guy is a very smart, long, and very fast cornerback. So shout out to those guys in the defensive backfield. Mine is Clavon Chason. This guy has been bouncing around the league and struggling to try and find a spot, a foothold. to try and show what his talent level was at LSU. Goes into a Chiefs game, rivalry game on a holiday weekend, nationally broadcast with everybody watching, has a sack and a half and 3 QB hits, just behind Max Crosby's 4 QB hits. He had himself a game and should have established himself as somebody to watch going forward for the rest of the season and bring back next year as at least a rotational piece, not depth, rotation. I can't wait to see more of him. All right, and okay, we're gonna get out of here. Thank you guys all for watching. You gotta check this out from the Hall of Shade, because we put together a little slideshow for you. Raiderdamus always works hard on this, and it's always really good. So I'm going to hit the intro and pop out, and this is how we cook. Let's go.
All right, here we go. In 1999, a movie was released that would become a cult classic. It was significant for a few reasons. First, it was the live-action directorial debut of Mike Judge, creator of Beavis and Butthead and King of the Hill. But this movie, called Office Space, remains significant for containing perhaps the most iconic scene in modern movie history, wherein the film's protagonists go out into an open field with a printer and beat the absolute shit out of it with a baseball bat, while Still by the Ghetto Boys plays in the background.
PC Load Letter? What the fuck is PC Load?
Hey, I'm going to get there. Office Space presents a bleak, dystopian vision of the modern corporate work environment, replete with overbearing, condescending bosses, vapid co-workers, a sanitized environment, and a hall monitor ethos designed to suck every ounce of joy and creativity out of the workers. But most emblematic of the drudgery and frustration of cubicle life is the printer, which taunts the main characters with a cryptic message like PC Load Letter. The reason that Office Space has remained relevant to this very day is that everyone can relate to some part of it, no matter what job they may have. Because ultimately, the film is about doing what makes you happy in a world that pressures you to conform. But to those who work in an office setting, it is the troublesome printer that is the most relatable, and the catharsis of destroying it that we find most rewarding to watch. And that's why printers are today's inductees into the Raiderdamus Hall of Shade. The idea of printing has been synonymous with cultural progress in the West. The Gutenberg Bible was first printed in the 1450s as the first book printed en masse with the movable typing press, and ushered in an age of literacy and enlightenment in Europe. The first high-speed computer printer was developed in 1953 and used by Univac computers, which at the time were the size of a small house. IBM invented the dot matrix printer in 1957, and Epson invented the first digital printer in 1968. Hewlett-Packard's LaserJet printer first came out in 1984, and the first high-resolution LaserJet 4 came out in 1993. While the advancements in printing have been numerous, the basic problem of printers remains that they are, and always have been, inscrutable pieces of pure evil that don't fucking work when you need them to. Paper jams, low ink levels, low toner levels, connectivity issues, outdated drivers, problems with the spooler on the machine, all of these and more are potential issues that one might have with a printer. None of these problems are obvious or intuitive to fix, and we must depend on the printer guy at work, who apparently is some sort of sorcerer who has studied the ancient magic that allows him to know what the hell toner is. The more well-versed you are in printer arcana, the more cursed you become, with the knowledge that printers are cheap and ink is incredibly expensive. It's easy to charge rock-bottom prices for a printer if you also charge top dollar for the thing that makes printer useful, the ink itself. Wireless networking has made these problems even worse. Now, instead of plugging into a machine so it damn well knows you're there, you have to search the ether for a printer which may or may not be online and may or may not be the machine that you think it is, and then hope your document is there in the printer tray when you go to get it. While most things in computing have become easier and more user-friendly over the years, printers are still the final boss of office work. There is nothing more frustrating than having to rely on a machine where you don't know how it works, you aren't qualified to fix it, and you don't have a baseball bat on hand to sufficiently threaten it into compliance. Fortunately, the rise of digital media has made a large portion of our printing needs superfluous, and the number of workers who rely on printers will continue to decrease. The fax machine, however, will live on eternally as the preferred method of sending medical information from place to place, and for high school athletes to send letters of intent to college athletic programs, for the simple reason that these machines use phone lines and the information cannot be hacked or altered. We may leave the printer behind someday, but man has harnessed technology to the point where he will always have a machine that acts as his nemesis. A machine that, like the common house cat, remembers when it was a god and will not let us forget it. So fuck you, printers. You'll all be obsolete someday, and I hope you all get smashed with a baseball bat. And that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, fuck you, printers. The last time I had to use a printer for work was about 5 years ago. And I haven't been happier at work since. The last time I've had a printer in my home was about 15 years ago. My life is so much better. Fuck you, printers.
Yeah. I haven't had to print anything at home in ages, but I did about 5 years ago work at a newsroom in a local newspaper, and it had one of those giant all-in-one printer, scanner, copier, fax things, and it was an absolute monstrosity. And my buddy and I would always make Office Space jokes around it and threaten it with a baseball bat to keep it working well. And some days it did, and some days it didn't. And I would have loved nothing more than to take that piece of shit back into the alley and demolish it with a good old Easton.
Absolutely. My printing solutions right now are, we have a FedEx store downtown. It's, it's a 7 to 8 minute walk. So if I need something printed, I do some art stuff. Like we'll take movie posters and turn them into name tags for the Doug Loves Movies podcast, make puns out of movie posters. And then if I need something right away, I got a neighbor. Hey, Lisa, can you go ahead and print something for me? And I email it to her. And the main message in the fact that those are my two printing sources is that printer is somebody else's problem, not mine.
Mm-hmm. You don't got to fix that thing when it dies, which it will.
Shout out Kinko's. That's the FedEx store that I was talking about. It used to be Kinko's. Shout out. All right, you guys. Thank you for watching. Go to Underdog and play that. Download the Fast Draft app from Player Profiler. It's fantastic. DFS fastdraft.app. Use code BigBoned and get a deposit match. And that's cool. And we didn't even preview the Tampa Bay game, which we're gonna lose, but it should be a shootout because Tampa Bay allows the second most quarterback fantasy points in all of the NFL. So if you're playing fantasy football this week, I know playoffs are right on the cusp, and you have a quarterback need because this is a Bimageddon. Lamar Jackson's not playing. Other guy, Jaden Daniels isn't playing. So a lot of my leagues are totally sunk because those were the two guys I was running with. Aiden O'Connell, baby, let's fucking go.
If the Raiders were intent on bringing in a free agent quarterback in the offseason, it should have damn well been Baker Mayfield, not Gardner Minshew. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are reaping the rewards of them bringing him in this year because, I mean, dude was number one pick in the draft for a reason. He's not as shitty as some people have said he is. He's actually really, really good.
He needed the cure. He needed that curing time.
I'm just glad he's getting a chance to show what he can do because I like that guy. And he never got a fair shake in Cleveland. He didn't get a fair shake in Carolina. But he's getting it now, and I'm glad to see it. And my man Bucky Irving is going to run wild.
I was a big advocate for Sam Howell. I think he could have done some things too. But yeah, it would have been nice to have Baker, but it looked like he was fully intent on re-signing with the Bucks, and they were fully intent on bringing him back. So yeah, we will talk to you on Tuesday. Hope you guys enjoy the weekend, enjoy the games. Hope your fantasy teams win, all that stuff. We'll talk about. We'll have a Tampa Bay rundown on Tuesday, unless we somehow manage to score more points than them at the buzzer, and then I'll come in with an instant reaction. Raiderdamus is certainly invited for that, and you guys can all watch that too because that'll be good content. It'll flip the script. Instead of being so happy that we won, we're gonna be pissed that we fucked up our draft pick. God damn it! I'm already getting into game shape.
The tank must flow.
Yeah. So, damn it. Asthma sucks. So, until next time, you guys, fuck the Broncos.
Fuck the Chiefs.
See ya.